Francis at the Vatican, at the heart of his audience with the Pope was a request. Trudeau asked Pope Francis to issue a public apology for the Catholic Church's role in establishing and running residential schools in Canada. Such an apology is among the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But the troubled history of the Catholic Church and Indigenous people stretches back centuries. The words were written more than 500 years ago. Any non-Christian people discovered by European explorers were to be vanquished and subdued. Direct quote, subjugated and brought to the faith. And it didn't stop with explorers. The Vatican directives became the basis of centuries of discriminatory laws in both Canada and the United States. Roxanne Dunbar-Ortiz is a historian and activist in San Francisco. She has worked with the International Indigenous Movement for more than 40 years. Hello, Professor. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me, Mary.
So the Pope issues a papal bull being an old word referring to the lead seal on the document, and it's called the Doctrine of Discovery. We've put a few lines from the doctrine on tape just to get a sense of what this is. Here it is.
Among other works, well-pleasing to the divine majesty and cherished of our heart, this assuredly ranks highest. That in our times, especially the Catholic faith and the Christian religion be exalted and be everywhere increased and spread. That the health of souls be cared for, and that barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself.
That barbarous nations be overthrown. The Doctrine of Discovery, when you read portions of it, it sounds like a directive from the Church to convert and or slaughter the inhabitants of the new lands. Is that overstating it?
Well, in the case of Columbus, because Columbus did say that these people had some attributes, they would be very easy to conquer. And then they sent, with Cortez, when they sent the big colonizing venture in 1518, De las Casas, the Dominican friar, was on board to determine whether or not the people they were going to conquer had souls or not and could be converted. Because if they didn't have souls, if they were savages, they couldn't be converted. So they then had 60 years of debates in Spain, legal debates about whether or not the indigenous Americans had souls. You have to understand that the church and the state both were colonizers, and they each had economic interests. So they wanted the labor of the native people. And for them to get that, they had to have, they had to convince the Holy Roman Empire, the Pope, that these people had souls.
In the minds of the monarchies, in the minds of church authorities, would this have been more than a quest for land? Are we talking about a quest for souls as well, just to find people and convert them to Christianity?
No, not really. It was a quest for domination, looting, taking the wealth, administering. Settler colonialism really came, was an invention of the British later on, who, carried the Doctrine of Discovery for their own, but they, in North America, their North American colonies, created, a settler colonialism. But it definitely was to control those people and to, the right to take all their resources and any of their land that they did wish to take.
So the doctrine became the foundation of a number of laws in the United States and in Canada over the centuries.
Absolutely.
Quite recently in Canada, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission found that the inspiration for residential schools could be traced back to the Doctrine of Discovery. It's that far-reaching?
Absolutely, that they had the right to break up families, children. This was true of the Spanish, and the mission systems they developed. They separated the families, separated the men and the women. They could do anything they wanted with the people, because not only did they own the land, but the people, their labor, everything. So it's completely entrenched in the legal system of both countries, and of course throughout Latin America as well. This is the basis for the boarding schools, the basis for genocide.
What do you think is the spiritual cost when the laws of the land regard you as less than human?
Well, it's, the moral fabric of the whole society is corrupted. Of course, the main victims are the people who are so regarded. The land is taken in order to make plantation land agribusiness worked by slave labor, but those slave bodies are also bought and sold and used as collateral, as exchange. And then the land, which cannot be separated from people or all other living things from the indigenous point of view, is broken down into small plots that are commodities, sold on a piece of paper as commodities. So just as the slave is sold as on a piece of paper, but it's a real body and it's real land. So we have a kind of analogy, between the land as a body of the native people and the body of slaves. But I think that applies also in Canada, where the people are removed from their relationship with what is a part of their body, and that is the land and the resources and all the other living things. So that's deeply traumatic and cannot be patched up without a restoration of land, particularly sacred sites that have been taken very purposely to kill the religions. So, and then we have the policing thing. You have your
Originie sounds, bringing light into the darkness.